All right, welcome to the Mental and Emotional Health Unit. We're going to be covering a lot of things in this unit, but we're going to first start out with what exactly mental and emotional health means. So to do this and to get into this correct mindset, we're going to do a little bit of a quick write. So I want you to answer these two questions in the space that I provided. What do you think it means to be mentally and emotionally healthy? And list at least 3 traits that suggest good mental and emotional health. So for example, having a healthy sense of humor can indicate good mental and emotional health. I did this activity as well, and some of the answers I put down included having a positive outlook, facing challenges with confidence, accepting criticism well, appearing happy, motivated to face challenges and achieve our own goals, and we can cope with feelings that may be a little difficult for us. And lastly, I wrote being able to bounce back from disappointments. That's a big one that we're going to talk about today as well. So hopefully you had something similar to that in your responses too. So we do have general characteristics of good mental and emotional health. So we had that definition that I had on my last slide. But if we break that down into further categories, these can indicate having good mental and emotional health. So one of those characteristics is having a sense of belonging. This means feeling close to family members, friends, teachers, and other people that provide us with support. So in other words, it's a sense of that you have a belonging to some sort of community that you feel close with. Also having a sense of purpose, so recognizing that you have value and importance as a person. And this also lets you help set and reach your goals, which is another important health skill that we will use throughout our entire lives. Positive outlooks is also another characteristic of good mental and emotional health. So this is like seeing the glass half full instead of half empty, if you've heard that saying before. It lets you see the bright side of life, which also reduces stress and increases your chances of success. Self-sufficiency is another characteristic of good mental and emotional health, so having the confidence to make responsible decisions, which also promotes your sense of independence and self-assurance. And lastly, the healthy self-esteem is another important characteristic of good mental and emotional health. We'll spend a whole day or a whole lesson on that one. But in general, having a healthy self-esteem helps you accept and recover from difficulties and failures. And again, remember, everyone has to manage difficult and stressful situations. Sometimes they occur almost daily for people, but mentally and emotionally healthy people handle stresses in positive ways. So when a person is able to handle those stresses in a positive way or handle a disappointment in a positive way, they are said to be resilient. So resiliency is that ability to adapt effectively and recover from disappointment, difficulty, or crisis. And this is a really important skill to have. It's one that many people who are successful have because if something bad happens in their life, they don't necessarily get down on themselves. So resilience is staying strong and dealing with problems that come up. It's not about being without problems. People who are resilient often face difficult situations. They're just able to effectively cope with them a little better. So it is learning to deal with them through keeping a strong mind. Resiliency often means being flexible and pliable like a rubber band. So if you think about holding a rubber band, right? When you stretch that rubber band out, it expands, but then it'll bounce right back if you let it go. So it doesn't lose its elasticity. And that's what kind of resiliency is, right? You're able to bounce back just like that rubber band does. So in general, resilient people keep an open mind and think in ways that make them feel like they're in control when stormy situations of life hit. How you think also determines whether you snap under pressure. So what you say in your mind matters. If you think you will survive a situation, you will. If you decide you're strong and flexible, you are. And sometimes the problem is not the real problem. Sometimes the problem is how you think negatively about the problem. So if I'm going to, for example, give a public speech in front of my peers, that's a common stressor that people face that is hard for a lot of people. It's hard for me. I have a hard time speaking in front of my peers as well. But if I'm going to tell myself in my mind before I give this presentation that I'm going to do terrible, I'm going to be awful, nobody's going to like my presentation, I'm going to be so boring, that is talking negatively to myself. And when I actually give my presentation, I might be way more nervous or not perform as well as I know I can. However, if I keep saying to myself, I can do this, I'm smart, I've practiced, I know my information, right? That's positive self-talk, and that's going to help me be way more successful and also lower my stress level. So positive self-talk is crucial when you are having a tough time. So when you think about a stressful situation in particular, think about what you say to yourself, right? Be conscious of what your brain is telling you. If you are going to talk negatively to yourself, that's something that needs to change. So think about what you say in your mind. Do you cheer yourself on or discourage yourself? But remember, when dark storms come in, don't panic. Remind yourself that you can do stuff. Remind yourself of the things you can do. That's really, really important. It's like that little engine that could story that we sometimes, some of us read as children, right? I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. The more times we tell ourselves that we think we can, the better off we are going to be, the more successful or more likely that we will do it. And even if we don't, we're going to feel good that we tried our best too. So that's all part of that resiliency. All right, so we have these characteristics of good mental and emotional health: a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, a positive outlook, self-sufficiency, and a healthy self-esteem. But part of having these characteristics is knowing who you are. And this includes your self-identity. So how you view yourself. Self-identity answers that question, who am I? It's an understanding a person has of themselves. And identity relates to our basic values that dictate the choices we make, such as with our relationships and career. For example, I value learning, education, and helping students, which is why I became a teacher. Most people internalize the values of their parents and their culture, but some aspects of identity are chosen. So sometimes we just take on what our parents teach us, but sometimes, especially as we get older, we choose some aspects of our identity for ourselves. A person can also hold multiple identities like teacher, coach, or friend, or student, teammate, friend, daughter, son, etc. And our identity, like I said before, is acquired indirectly from our parents, peers, and other role models. So essentially it's collected from our surroundings, the people we surround ourselves with and that teach us and that we learn from throughout our lives. Children come to define themselves in terms of how they think their parents see them. So for example, if their parents see them as worthless, they will also come to define themselves as worthless. People on the inverse side, who perceive themselves as likable, may remember more positive than negative statements that they receive. So it is very dependent on the surroundings that we put ourselves in or that we're forced into. There are several different parts of identity. We're going to focus on only 4 of them. So this first part we're focusing on is our family and friends. These are the people who influence who you are because they're the people you spend the most time with. We can adopt values from both our family and our friends. Student is another aspect of identity. So for adults, this would be the career that they choose. But as teenagers, your main career is school. You might have a job outside of school, but your main job is being a student. So that is another aspect of identity that we're going to focus on. So school is a place where you can meet with others who share your values, like your friends, but also different peers in the classes that you're in as well. In addition, what you're involved with demonstrates your talents and skills, which is another part of this aspect of identity. So think about what you're involved in, not just with school-related activities, but also in the community. So Are you involved in marching band, football, theater? Maybe you are in a taekwondo class outside in the community, or do some sort of community organizing and volunteering that way. That's all part of this aspect of identities, because it does highlight the talents and skills that you have. The third part of our identity we'll focus on is our culture. And culture refers to one's beliefs, values, attitudes, religion, attire, music, traditions, language, and lots of other things. That's just some of them. So it involves what we do and how we behave and perform. It includes how we walk, sit, carry our bodies, and interact with each other. And we actually have two different kinds of culture. We have a surface culture, which people can see through our outward actions, and we also have a deeper culture, which typically people can't see unless they get to know us. So if we look at that surface culture, and I like the analogy of a cultural iceberg, like I have in the picture on the slide, because it's a good way to visual these two different types of culture, right? If we think of an iceberg, most of it we can't see because it's underneath the water. We only see the very tip of it above the water. So the very tip of that iceberg is our surface culture. So this includes things that people can usually outwardly see, like the types of food we eat, the music we listen to, the language we speak, how we dress, right, our fashion sense. Whereas our deep culture is everything underneath the water on the iceberg. So this includes things, again, that people kind of need to get to know you to understand. So, for example, this would include how you view authority, or how you view aging, your decision-making skills, your problem-solving skills, your concepts of time, past and future, fairness and justice. So all these different things make up our culture, but we do have two different kinds of culture. So keep that in mind as well. The last part of our identity that we'll focus on is our goals. And goals should be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. They can be small or large, and they can be school or college related or career related, as well as silly, like learning how to juggle. It's actually one of my personal goals because I still can't do it, and I've been trying forever, but I'll get it one day. But our goals also include those bucket list items that we want to do before we die. So for example, a lot of times people have skydiving on their bucket list. That's just one example. Maybe it's traveling to a specific country. But that is all included in that goal part of our identity. Lastly, one thing that's really important to understand about self-identity is that it's never final or fixed. It develops throughout our lifespan as we have different experiences throughout our lives, right? If you think about all the experiences you're having as a teenager, those are going to be very different when you get to adulthood and are out in the career world, and you're going to come in contact with a lot more people. And remember, people really influence our self-identity, so the people we surround ourselves with. So it's going to develop throughout our lifespan as we have different experiences and meet new people. The self-identity I have today is very different from the identity I held for myself in high school. And knowing one's self-identity increases self-esteem, which is another aspect or characteristic of good mental emotional health, and reduces depression and anxiety. So when we know who we are, our mental health is going to be better. And that's sometimes challenging as a teenager. I feel like I just am in my early 30s, and I feel like I'm just starting to really get a good grasp on my self-identity. But that's also because I've had a lot of different experiences because I've been living longer. So keep that in mind as well. When people are doing what they think they should be doing, they are happy. So it's really important to have a good foundation of self-identity in order to gain those characteristics of good mental and emotional health. Now, another aspect of developing a positive self-identity is developing character as well. And character are those distinctive qualities that describe how a person thinks, feels, and behaves. Good character is an outward expression of our inner values and is a vital part of a healthy identity. And a person of good character demonstrates core ethical values, like responsibility, honesty, and respect. So some general good traits or traits of good character include social intelligence, emotional intelligence, proactivity, kindness, intellectual humility, purpose, grit, gratitude, curiosity, and self-control. As I said before, especially as a teenager, having a good grasp on our self-identity can sometimes be really, really hard. But there are some ways we can promote a healthy identity. One of these ways is listing our strengths and weaknesses. So being honest and realistic of our strengths and what our weaknesses are. Be proud of your strengths too, and not too critical of your weaknesses. So this goes back to that positive self-talk too, right? When we're not very good at something, talking to ourselves more positively and giving ourselves that grace will help promote a healthier identity. It's also a good idea to set realistic goals to improve on our weaknesses as well. We can also surround ourselves with positive, supportive people. That's part of that sense of belonging. So choosing friends who support and respect your rights and needs helps develop that healthy identity. And this can be demonstrated in this video that I will play for you in just a second. It's from a show on, I think it's National Geographic or the Discovery Channel, called Brain Games. So I want you to watch the video and then we'll go over it. So after watching that video, obviously there were two people in the experiment that they did. There was a woman who was shooting free throws on a basketball court who was not very good at basketball. And when they blindfolded her, the people surrounding her were cheering her on like she was doing good. And when she was when they took the blindfold off, she did really, really well. Whereas the guy who was really good at throwing free throws, when he was blindfolded, everyone was booing him. And same when he took off the blindfold. He didn't do so hot because the people around him were booing him. So the people we surround ourselves also affect how we feel about ourselves, which in turn affects how we view ourselves and our identity. So it's really important to surround ourselves with supportive and positive people. We can also promote a healthy identity by developing a purpose in your life. So we can do this by setting goals and working to achieve them. Also finding something you like to do and doing it often. It's another way to promote a healthy identity. So if you're always too busy to do the things you enjoy, you're not taking care of yourself. It's really important to take some time out to do something just for you and something that you like to do, whatever it is. Just make sure you take that time to take care of yourself. And during stressful times, that's super important. Forming meaningful relationships is also another way to promote a good identity or a positive identity. So again, that goes back to that support system that can help build confidence and develop a sense of security and belonging. We can avoid unhealthy, high-risk behaviors to promote a healthy identity as well. Risks are an important part of life. We're faced with risks every day, but helpful risks challenge you to develop skills and mature in new ways. So when I say an unhelpful, high-risk behavior, that's something like using tobacco, alcohol, drugs, or reckless driving, or using your cell phone while you're driving. Those are all dangerous and harmful. But if you can choose helpful risks that challenge you, like being or taking part in artistic or creative activity, playing a sport, practicing public speaking, those types of things, those will help promote a healthy self-identity. And lastly, we can contribute to our communities. Giving back is one of the best ways to feel good about yourself and to promote a healthy identity. It also helps us develop a purpose in our life too, so sometimes these are connected as well. And it's just part of being a good citizen. So volunteering within your community improves not only the quality of the people that live in your community's lives, but it also gives you a sense of accomplishment and belonging and increases your self-esteem. So we're going to talk about self-esteem next in our next lesson, but keep in mind that self-esteem and self-identity are closely related, and we'll talk about that more in our next lesson.